Hello again, my friends. So, as of lately, I've been seeing a whole lot more dogma and absolutes coming from nutrition experts. And this has been going on for a long time. Probably, obviously, it's always going on since the dawn of humanity. But I suppose the more that you research and the more doctors and nutritionists and other so-called experts that you follow, the more you'll begin to notice these things. And that goes for pretty much noticing anything and everything, no matter what subject. You notice, the more that you do something, the more you research, the more you read up on it, the more that you notice everything it has to offer. And unfortunately, nutrition and health science has a whole lot of dogma, a whole lot of one-sided statements and conclusions that are not completely true. Statements such as sugar is good or sugar is bad. Things such as carbohydrates are bad and cause disease. Statements such as if you eat meat, you'll have a greater risk of heart disease, which is different from saying if you eat meat, it will cause heart disease, or you're likely to have heart disease. Or just even not even like making, like if you say eating meat raises your risk of heart disease, but you act as if everybody who eats meat is doomed for heart disease eventually. These are exaggerating the facts. These are exaggerating the evidence, exaggerating information, and drawing false conclusions or unnecessary conclusions that have less practical application in real life than the actual facts. So unfortunately, it seems like most experts have to take a side. I've seen this all the time. And of course, it's crazy. You'll find experts on all sides of each of the statement or the argument. For example, vegans, generally vegan experts see animal products as absolute evil and they will kill you. And they're 100% against them. And then you see paleo people, and especially ketogenic people, who are completely in the opposite end, and they'll usually say that meat is an essential part of the diet and it should be the base of the diet, or just an essential part of the diet, because there's all sorts of different variations of each diet. But generally speaking, experts claim that cholesterol is not bad for you, meat is not bad for you, it's actually good for you, yada yada, on one side. Then you have vegans who say the complete opposite, that it's completely bad for you, and yada yada on the other. And unfortunately, it can be extremely challenging to see which one of these people are more true than the other, or just true in general. Usually though, with all of these topics, the truth lies somewhere in the middle. So without going too deep into the details of the philosophy behind everything, at a baseline, this entire argument is extremely nuanced, so to speak, and pretty much all of these little things are pretty nuanced, okay? And we have to look at the bigger picture of everything. So let's start with sugar, okay? And when I talk about sugar, I'm talking about processed sugar. I'm talking about the sugar found in sodas. I'm talking about found in snack cakes. I'm talking about the white processed sugar that has not been around, or at least it's only been a huge part of our diet as the last 200 years. Now, of course, sugar's been around in all sorts of different forms for thousands of years. I'm not denying that. However, with industrialization and conventional stores now, pretty much everything has sugar in it, and there's a reason for that. Within the last 200 years, manufacturers or large corporations that create this type of food is really investing in creating addictive properties within their foods. Okay, this is a known fact. This essentially is the reason why sugar deserves to be demonized as much as it is. Okay, what inspired this whole discussion on processed sugar is a recent video, or a couple recent videos I've been seeing recently from particular doctors, specifically ones that have degrees in sports performance oriented professions. And I don't really want to drop names, but they're basically very well regarded in the conventional mainstream bodybuilding and strength training, nutrition type circles. Okay, mind you, these mainstream bodybuilding and basically mainstream athletic minded people generally are promoting supplements that have a lot of harmful additives to them. Obviously a lot of them work and they will boost sports performance, but they're not really being implemented with health in mind. Okay, and so of course you're not going to want to believe that Gatorade is disgusting. It's not necessary. There's healthier alternatives, and it is not good for you. It does fuel inflammation in the body. But these people want to promote this as long as it sticks within your macros or calories within the day. Okay. Anyone who promotes calorie restriction or macro counting and is generally for sports performance and for weight loss, there is a degree of it that should be discussed and implemented. But that's weight loss, that's sports performance, that's not health. Okay. In the bigger picture, macronutrients and calories should not have any place, should have a very small discussion, and it shouldn't be your entire reason for defending something like Gatorade. Like if your thing is like, oh, as long as if it fits your macros, then it's fine. That's not for health. Okay, for weight loss, sure, you starve yourself, you could look anorexic, or you could lose weight just in general, right, depending on the extreme, depending on the degree in which you restrict calories. Okay, but our body actually does have a natural regulating mechanism for hunger, and if you focus more on quality of food and nutrition, and this has actually been shown in telomere studies, it's actually a side finding in a lot of the research on telomeres, and is been concluded by people on longevity research. Essentially, as long as you pay attention to nutrient quality and you focus more, I guess you could say, on the micronutrients, but more so on getting lots of antioxidants, eating high quality foods, and avoiding inflammatory foods such as processed sugar and such as excess consumption of saturated fats and yada yada, you'll naturally lose weight because your hunger hormones will regulate and your natural instincts will kick in. Okay, so calorie counting is kind of, if you promote calorie counting and that's your way of explaining, well, as long as it fits your macros, then it should be healthy. You can eat all the sugar you want as long as it fits your macros. And disease is just eating too many calories, blah blah blah. Like, that's such a, what would you call it? It's wrong, and it's a very basic surface level understanding of nutritional science and health in general, and how food affects the body. And you can look at studies on saturated fat, studies on sugar, processed sugar, studies on food allergies and intolerances, and you can look at studies that have shown, at the very least, how that food does affect the body in different ways, and it has nothing to do with calories, and it has less to do with macros and calories and more to do with what it is you're eating. You will see that a calorie is not a calorie. So anyone who has a PhD and they're talking about calorie restriction, being the main factor in health, completely just irresponsible, irrational. It's wrong. And you have to ask at that point, why are they saying these things? And usually it has to do. It's either ignorance, like they're not actually considering the large abundance of scientific information, or else it is bias because they're in a sports performance, and most of these supplements are pretty damn unhealthy for you just because of additives. Really, for the most part, and a lot of times the exact supplements that they are recommending or suggesting or even endorsed by, or that they manufacture themselves, are actually harmful and go against the health research. And so in order to defend their product, kind of subtly, I guess, they have to promote this paradigm that it's all about calories in and calories out. So if you take their supplement that health research has shown is not good for you, then as long as you believe in this whole calories in versus calories out thing, you can take as much processed sugar, eat as much of the junk that's in their supplement as you want, so you won't be scared to take their supplement as long as it fits your macros. And that's my own assumption. I really don't know why these people who talking down on people who reverse disease, talking down on veganism, talking down on ketogenic diets. I personally am not I'm not attached to any of these. I believe they all are very helpful tools that have real applications for certain conditions, and I've seen the healing properties of all of these in my own life and with my own eyes. I've tried them myself. I've had friends. I've had family. I've had numerous friends around the gym, clients in the past, who have tried different protocols of these natures, and they've seen the way that they change the body, a lot of which we have insurance, obviously, so getting blood work, seeing how it affects our blood work, that's actually a beautiful thing. Especially nowadays, you can order your own lab tests, which are pretty expensive, but you can, if you wanted to invest some money in it, you could see how eating a certain way for a period of time can affect your blood levels, and that's great. That's essentially using the scientific method on yourself. The only difference between that and the peer-reviewed scientific research is that it's literally just on you, and you're doing your own experiment, and you're seeing with test results exactly what this diet is doing to you, but you don't have 50, 60, 70 people. You don't have a control group. You don't have a placebo. It's not peer-reviewed, yada yada, but peer review shouldn't matter if you've experienced it for yourself and you've seen the studies, or you've seen the lab results, and you know for sure that that's what you did. You don't need all this crap. So it's just other people for some reason need these peer-reviewed studies, which can be very helpful, but unfortunately there's evidence on both sides of a lot of arguments. But as far as the sugar thing, processed sugar, I really don't know how somebody who can tote themselves as a professional, tote themselves as a well-educated expert and have a PhD and all this stuff, how could they talk so confidently about nutrition when they think that processed sugar is okay? And these people continuously point out how nuanced all of this is, but it seems like they're trying to say that Coca-Cola is okay just in general. They're not explaining explaining both sides. They're basically expressing their view on sugar in a way that seems like Coca-Cola is completely okay. You can drink as many of it as you want. They don't say this, but they don't say, one Coke a day is okay, but if you go in excess, then you're fucked. And the more processed sugar you have, the more likely you are to die of a disease. They don't even say that, and that's very irresponsible. The way that they're expressing this advice, their views on sugar, is making it seem like, you know, there doesn't even need to be a certain degree of moderation. Of course, that should be common sense, but as a professional talking to, what would you call it, latents people, or just the average public who aren't scientifically versed, they're not going to look at it in a nuanced way. And for somebody who points out like nuances so often, it's kind of interesting that you wouldn't point out this nuance with sugar, and talking about all the nuances with cholesterol and all these other things, but not expressing that with sugar, and constantly using the word nuanced. Anyone who's seen this, who knows who I'm talking, they probably know what I'm talking about. For not pointing out the nuances in sugar, it really makes it sound like they think it's completely okay, and that's just ridiculous. There's plenty of studies that show processed sugar directly feeds heart disease, okay, over time. And there's scientific evidence, like, and everyone knows this. Everyone knows this. But beyond that, I mean, even the majority of the vegans, especially the vegan experts, as well as the paleo people, everyone can agree that processed sugar is not good. It's not recommended, and to not use an abundance of that. Okay. So crazy how these people that are supposed to be anti-dogmatic and absolute, trying to sound unbiased, but this whole processed sugar thing is stupid, it's ridiculous. And I've seen with my own eyes my family members, and of course my girlfriend's family members as well. It's a great thing to be living this generation, because let me just give an example. I've seen a lot of my relatives drop down to certain diseases. One of my relatives, don't want to get into too much specifics, but he actually had a heart attack out of nowhere and has been struggling with heart disease ever since. This was years ago, and I used to live with this person for years, and actually I lived with him the majority of my life, on and off. And I remember looking inside, and he wasn't obese, okay? He was slightly overweight, more than likely, but he had a relatively active job, always sweating, drinking plenty of water, tap water, but drinking plenty of water. And his refrigerator, he had no real foods in there. He had M&Ms down at the bottom, where the vegetable and fruit sliding out compartment is. He had a huge thing of M&Ms on one side, and a huge thing of Reese's peanut butter cups and all sorts of like chocolate candies in the other, and Skittles and whatnot. He had these big things in there. He was not obese, but he did have these candies down there. Okay. And then in his freezer, he ate the majority of his food was frozen dinners, which, you know, if you know anything about health science and nutrition, you know that these are full of nitrates, sodium nitrates, monosodium glutamate. Of course, you could say an overabundance of salt in general, but nitrates and MSG, but especially nitrates, have been specifically shown to drastically increase your risk of not only cancer but also heart disease. Okay, and this is a significant risk, and this is actually why processed meat, processed red meat, has been declared a high-level carcinogen, higher than, you know, regular red meat. Okay, which that's debatable, but the processed meat, and they've shown that it's the nitrates. Okay, that's what separates processed meat from red meat, is it's the nitrates and the way it's processed. Okay, and you could debate all day, oh, it's just the fact that there's too much sodium, it's not the actual nitrates, blah blah blah, whatever. The point is, these frozen foods were influencing heart disease. Okay, for sure, that was all he ate. And they're generally fortified with vitamins and minerals and stuff, but I mean, please, man, that's not, it doesn't matter. Okay, And then, of course, the M&Ms and stuff down below. And he did eat in moderation. He was not obese. I see the portions he had. I'm pretty sure if he was exceeding his calories to the extent that, you know, these people, these so-called experts want to say would cause disease, if he was exceeding his calories enough to influence disease, then he probably would not have, you know, he probably been pretty overweight. Regardless, though, he did develop heart disease, and these were the foods he ate. He would eat, I think he'd eat like bananas every now and then, and, you know, lots of pasta. Which the funny thing is, his doctor, after they put him on diuretics, which drain your body of sodium, his doctor put him on diuretics, and he would always cramp up, and he would tell his doctor, like, I'm always cramping up, and his doctor said that he was allergic to elbow macaroni. Only elbow macaroni, though. He could have spaghetti pasta and any other pasta, same brand, same, you know, but just elbow macaroni. For some about the elbow shape, his doctor said he's allergic to elbow macaroni. This is why, you know, you've got to be very skeptical about professionals. I hear the stupidest crap that people say from their doctors all the time. The reason he was having a cramp was not because he was allergic to elbow macaroni. The reason why he was the reason why he was cramping up is because he was on diuretics to drain the body of sodium and other minerals as well. Without these minerals, especially sodium, your body cannot retain water, and this causes cramps. Okay? But, you know, the doctor couldn't tell him that, because if he did, then you'd have to get him off the medication. So, and then of course, when you take these diuretics and you drain your body of minerals, especially sodium, now you're at a greater risk of having another heart attack. Okay, it raises your blood pressure and puts more stress on the heart. Okay, but people don't know that. They only know sodium's bad for you. It's more nuanced than that, right? There's so much more to it. But people don't research. They don't think deeply. They're not skeptical about the basic conclusions they hear, and that's why people get ill, get sick. Okay. So, yeah, that is just an anecdote, but there's so much science that also, obviously, everyone knows. I shouldn't even have to defend this shit. It's just ridiculous, okay? So they basically are insinuating that sugar is fine, as long as it fits your macros, and that's just stupid. Beyond that, you know, we have the debate of, we have the debate of cholesterol, we have the debate of saturated fat. Here's the thing with all of this, okay? And this is the best way, I feel, for most people to live their lives, because it's easier, and you can feel confident that you're going to be healthy. You're going to be substantially healthier than 95% of the population, okay? At a baseline, you have to recognize that sugar is addictive, okay? And the only reason you crave sugar is because you keep it in your diet. But through trial and error, if you try removing a certain food group from your diet for a month, or at least 2 weeks, after about 2-3 weeks, you completely stop craving it, okay? Physically, of course, because it is physically addictive. I've done this with sugar, with cheese, I've done this with wheat. I've done when I went vegan, right, I was craving meat for the first, 2 weeks or something, then it completely, went away. And when I started eating meat again, I started to crave it again, okay? As long as you keep something in your diet, as long as you have that cheat meal once a week, you're going to keep craving it. So you're kind of just doing yourself a disservice. I hear people all the time, well, if I don't have that cheat meal, I just go completely crazy. Yeah, it sounds to me like, you're just, it really does sound like a mental disorder of some kind. It's just the fact that you haven't tried it. And if it's driving you crazy, then you must be pretty damn addicted to it, right? Like, it's the same thing as a meth addict. If I don't have my meth every couple days, then I start to go crazy, man. I lose my sanity. That's why I have a cheat meth every couple days. Like, dude, as long as you keep that in your system, you're going to keep craving it. And depending on the degree of the substance, it's going to take a lot longer to let go. So, yeah, I mean, balance is key, all right? So, without, so besides this whole moderation nonsense, basically, um, if you have, like a teaspoon of sugar a day, it's probably not going to kill you, obviously. These things will not kill you right away, no matter what it is, okay? But that doesn't mean that they're not harmful for you, okay? Usually it'll take a couple years to develop an illness, especially something like heart disease. So it'll take about 10 years or so. But a teaspoon of sugar every day is probably not going to make that big of a difference when you're like 80 or 90 years old, okay? A teaspoon of sugar, probably not, okay? A tablespoon of sugar, probably not. Especially if you exercise. When you're exercising, you're going to burn the majority of that stuff off. Although a sugar spike at certain times of the day can definitely ruin your quality of life. Sugar can definitely ruin your quality of life. It can fuck up your sleep. It can ruin your mood, your energy. It can mess with your heartbeat. There's a lot of things it can do to you. Same thing with saturated fat. Okay, let's look at saturated fat. If you have 3 eggs a day, right, and that's the only saturated fat you eat, that's like the only animal product you eat. You do that every single day. You're not likely to die from that. Okay, let's be real here. There are significant factors that cause diseases. Okay, that most people ignore. People are so focused on, oh, meat's the devil, sugar's the devil. Listen, out of everyone else in society, I see a lot of doctors eating this way too. The processed foods, the junk foods, okay, an overabundance of unhealthy foods, especially. No matter how many calories you're eating, okay, it's predominantly the trans fats, the processed sugar, mineral imbalances, vitamin deficiencies, and processed meats, etc. It's the lack of exercise. It is a lot of additives that are added to food are not good for you. Pharmaceutical drugs, they have a purpose, but they're overprescribed, and doctors are trying to get people hooked on these drugs a lot of times, rather than just trying to help nurse them back to health to where they can remove these drugs from their routine. These drugs are just causing more imbalance in the body. If you can't catch on to that, if you don't know that, I don't know what to tell you, but it's a fact. It's true. But regardless, there's major factors involved. Your life stress, okay? If you're in a relationship with someone you cannot stand, if they're getting in the way of your life, if they're not supporting your life, if they're draining your resources, and you stay in that relationship, that's probably your prime source of disease. Okay? Excess stress, your sleep's going to be hindered, everything else in your life's going to be more stressful because of it. It's going to kill you. That is going to be a chronic health problem. It's going to be an immediate health problem, okay? This is more important than, a teaspoon of sugar a day. But of course, if you eat excess sugar, if your diet's not on point, these relationship stresses, life stresses in general are going to hit you a lot harder. Alright, I'm telling you right now, if you're chronically stressed, you want to address whatever it is in your life. You want to get rid of that chronic stress in life, and you want to support your body's stress response through proper nutrition, especially tonic herbs. Tonic herbs will work wonders on your stress response and how you deal with the world. I was a completely different person before I started taking tonic herbs and doing relaxed breathing exercises and changing up my nutrition. It took me a long time to be consistent with it, but one step at a time. You know what I mean? They always say the 10,000 hour rule, 10,000 hours of mastery. It's all about habits. So, yeah, these things are a lot more important than having a couple eggs every day. But at the same time, there are things you should avoid no matter what. There's no reason to have certain things in your diet. Hydrogenated oils and other forms of trans fat, such as mono and diglycerides, processed sugar, high fructose corn syrup, processed juices, like conventional bottled juices from the store that are pasteurized and yada yada. I do feel like dairy products can be extremely damaging and harmful. but that's my own opinion, and you know, not for everyone, but you know, I feel like there's more important things to work on. A lack of exercise, you know what I mean? Muscular imbalances, a lack of stretching, a lack of soft tissue work, you know, being exposed to different temperatures, getting some sunlight, your vitamin D, you know, supplementing with certain nutrients where you're deficient, you know, if you don't read, I'm getting a little out there, but you get the picture, all right? Pay attention to the basics and the foundation first. But at the same time, understand that sugar is in fact bad for you, okay? When I used to be addicted to caffeine and energy drinks, I'd hear information like the things people are saying, and I just, you know, butt fuck myself with energy drinks essentially. And I felt horrible, man. It was horrible. Fast forward, you know, a year, 2 years, 3 years later, where I am now especially, I haven't had an energy drink in a long time. If I do have one, it's, you know, occasional. I do prefer organic energy drinks if I'm going to have one, and they have to serve a purpose of some kind. They're usually nootropic energy drinks, such as like brain tonic, etc. Of course, they still have sugar, and maybe organic sugar, but it's still there. But the reason why I choose organic is because I know that the artificial colors, the you know, the form of sugar is, I feel more comfortable with it. The additives, the preservatives, etc., they're not going to be in there. And of course, processed sugar is processed sugar. But for sure, without a doubt, I do believe that these colors and preservatives, they have a tendency to damage DNA. I do believe that. And I think it's funny that a lot of people are so sure that these things are not harmful to you. You don't know. They haven't even been a part of our diet long enough. But for some reason, you know, it's this ego nonsense. Like, oh, it is good for you. There's nothing blah, blah, blah. Like, dude, relax, man. That overly triggered attitude, that's a mental disorder, young man. Woo, chill out. Anyway, if you've watched the video this far, put a code word down in the comments so I know you've gotten to this point. Health is balance. Health is balance. Put that down in the comments. Health is balance. And I'll know that you've seen it this far. Thank you so much for watching. I'd love to hear your questions and comments down below. I love reading everyone's comments. I may not always get back to people, but I try to do my best, and I read everything. I really appreciate everything. Subscribe if you have not already, and I'll talk to you soon.